All right, bro, so you want to take Equipoise, an amazing intermediate bulking compound to take during the off season to get that appetite spike to gain a shit ton of size pretty goddamn quick. We're going to be breaking down the compound from A to Z, all the pros and cons. This is definitely not a beginner friendly option. It has a lot of pros, but it does come with some goddamn sides. So stay tuned if you want to learn more about this fucking compound. Now, first off, what is Equipoise, aka EQ, aka Boldenone? All right, this is a veterinary compound. This was never deployed for human use. It was used for race horses. Okay, it's a horse steroid to get that endurance, to increase that RBC hematocrit hemoglobin, to get that fucking endurance. That's what the compound was made for. So whenever you take this, just know that you're not taking a human FDA approved fucking compound. It's literally made for horses. All right. It's pretty fucking toxic. There are pros if you deploy it correctly, but it was not made for humans. That is a major con in my eyes. I specifically like to take compounds that were designed for humans. So compounds like EQ, like Tren, that were designed for a veterinary use case. I tend to take a lot more precautions when I decide to deploy this shit, just because, again, it's not made for humans. This compound is injectable. It's not oral, so you will be pinning this shit. It takes a long ass time to kick in, so you do have to keep that in mind when taking this. Typically has a 16-day half-life whenever you're taking the compound. Slow and steady, okay? But it takes a long fucking time to kick in. This is when a lot of cons can arise. So when you pin it, it can sometimes take upwards of a month and a half, 2 months to fully peak in your system. So this is a compound you take for a longer duration of time, but you really have to start with a low dose. I mean, it's not an exception. You can't take a high dose taking the shit. You have to start with a low dose just because that half-life. If you do run into a side and it takes that long to kick in, you have to understand that when a compound takes a long time to kick in, it's going to take the same amount of time to fully exit the system. So if you run into spiked blood thickness, spiked blood pressure, okay, and it takes a month to kick in, you have to understand it's going to take a month to exit the system as well. So if you are running into that blood thickness, you're going to have to combat that shit for a month while it's in your system. You're not going to be able to do shit. You're going to have to ride it out. So longer esters are definitely a little more risky than shorter esters like Prop, ACE, any type of suspension. If you deploy correctly, again, it can have some solid use cases. So it was trialed for human use decades ago for anemia and muscle wasting, but it just never actually ended up getting approved. So this compound is definitely a little more risky as opposed to a compound like VAR, like MAST, that actually was deployed in some human use cases, okay? Now, what would you typically use this for in a bodybuilding context? You typically use this for a long, clean bulk, okay? When you're in an off season, this is definitely the compound you want to be deploying if you're an intermediate user. You already understand how to combat those most common mild sides that you're going to get from like a test only, test VAR blast, whatever the fuck, okay? You're going to get an appetite spike. So that is the main use case that a lot of bodybuilders will take this for when they're trying to down a shit ton of food, okay? Eating sucks when you're trying to bulk. Whatever you can do to make that easier on yourself, you're going to want to do that. This compound's going to allow you to eat a lot more with ease. So that is the prime use case on why you take this shit. Red blood cell count will boost. That's originally what it was used for racehorses, to get that endurance during their fucking sprints, their races, okay? When it comes to endurance, when it comes to hunger, that's what you use this compound for. It's going to be amazing for those two benefits specifically. You're going to get crazy vascularity as well, okay? Even if you're bigger, if you're holding a little more water, if you're holding a little bit more fat, you can still get crazy vascularity just because of that elevated RBC hematocrit and hemoglobin values, okay? Your veins will literally be roadmaps. You're going to look crazy as fuck, like Spider-Man out this motherfucker. Just whenever you flex, veins are going to be popping. Even if you're not flexing, your shit's going to be popping, okay? So you have to understand that vascularity is a huge pro taking the shit as well. Now, typical dosage, what are you going to take when you're taking EQ? Typically, you'll take anywhere from 400 to 800 milligrams a week. On the higher end, I've seen guys take a couple grams of this shit. That's on the extreme use case. If you are brand new, start fucking low. 400 to 800 milligrams a week is perfect. 800 is definitely on the high end, but 400 is a very typical dose that you will see when you're taking this compound as a new user. For time duration, anywhere from 14 to 20 weeks, upwards of half a year. Okay, so that's 24 weeks. The reason you take it longer is, again, because of that half-life. It's going to take a long time to kick in. So you can't run this like a prop or like a quick oral that's going to kick in real quick and exit quick. This compound takes time. So you can't just deploy it for a month and expect to get fucking results. This is a compound you take for a little longer, okay, to get those fucking good results. And that's why you would want to deploy it during an off season for that hunger stimulation, for that endurance boost. What you're going to want to do typically if you're stacking with tests, which you should be because the compound is very suppressive, you take it at a 1-to-1 ratio with test. If your test is at, let's say 5 to 600, okay, you take the EQ at 5 to 600, all right? It's very simple. That is a surefire way to avoid major sides. If you're stacking your EQ way higher as opposed to test like 2-1 test, EQ to test, it's not going to be in your favor. It's not going to go well, okay? You always want to make sure, as a general rule of thumb, that you're stacking your test to EQ 1-to-1. So if you're new, okay, start low, 300 test, 300 EQ, 400 test, 400 EQ, start fucking low, work your way up, use lowest, most effective dosing first and work your way up. It does not hurt to start low, okay? I see a lot of people in my comments ask me about dosing, asking if they can just pump like a gram of EQ or a gram of trend. Don't do it. Just start low, work your way the fuck up, okay? Because sides are inevitable if you start at a very high dose. So you have to understand how your body reacts to these compounds. Start low, brother. Does not hurt to start low. Work your way up, okay? Dependent on your labs. How are you reacting to the compound? If you're acting well, okay, you hit a peak or you hit a plateau, okay, then maybe up the dose a little bit. But when you increase the dose too high, there is a point where you get diminished returns. It is just not worth. You're going to run into more cons as opposed to pros. The higher the dose you go, you always start with the lowest dose you possibly can. See how the compound's reacting in your system. See how you're liking it, okay? How you're reacting. Is it poor? Is it great? Either way, start low, okay? That is the best possible thing you can do with any compound you take. Now, a lot of people front load EQ for the first couple weeks. If you are impatient, or a lot of people are fucking impatient, of course, as I just mentioned, if you're taking this, you're going to understand that it takes a while to kick in. So a lot of people front load to get it to kick in a little quicker. I would not suggest doing this, but a lot of people do this when they're mapping out their dosing for their EQ protocol. Now I'm going to go into the cons and why this is a bad idea, but you will see a lot of people do this, and technically you could do it. I just would not advise doing this. It's just very common. You'll see a lot of people do this, which is why I had to include it in this dosing part of the goddamn video. Here are the pros, okay? Slow, high quality gains, okay? Over a full blast, if it's a 6-month cycle, you can expect 15 to 25 pounds of lean mass gain. This compound isn't really going to be the most anabolic compound you can take. The main reason you take it is to eat more. If you can eat more, if you can get more protein in, more calories, more carbs, more fats, you're going to pack on more size. So if you're stacking this on top of tests with the elevated protein synthesis, nitrogen retention, etc., you stack EQ, you get more food into your goddamn system. That's how you grow. Okay, the more food that you ingest during a bulk, during an off season, this is your way to grow. If you're not eating, you are not packing size, you are not growing. So the more food you down, the more you grow. And that's why you can get slow and steady gains with the compound. It will have some muscle building properties attached to it, but it's not the craziest. It's not like test, okay? It's not like tren, right? It's mainly used for that appetite stimulation effect. That brings me to the next pro, okay? Your appetite will go absolutely nuclear, as I mentioned earlier, okay? It is the easiest compound to take to be in a caloric surplus, to easily down your food. That is why I've taken it in the past. That's why my clients take this shit during an off season. The majority of my clients actually do push low dose EQ specifically for the hunger stimulation effect. You'll see a lot of Olympia caliber IBB pros take this shit in the off season just because it makes it so easy to bulk. All right. And that is the easiest pro, the best possible pro you'll run into taking this compound. Again, veins, vascularity. That's another massive pro if you like that vascular look. Okay. It looks pretty fucking sick when you're vascular. Okay. Makes you look a little more lean, even if you're not a little bulky. Okay. It'll make you look a little more fucking lean if you're having vein roadmaps everywhere all across your body. Now, cardio and endurance will also go fucking nuclear. This is God mode tier. Okay. When it comes to your endurance, a lot of athletes, okay, even if you're not a bodybuilder, you'll see them take EQ, low dose EQ. EPO is another version of this shit, just a very high-end toxic version that you can literally croak from on the spot. I would not recommend taking this shit, but EQ is like the low tier version of this. So you will get that cardio, that endurance benefit taking the compound. on top of that appetite stim, which makes it another solid compound for that specific benefit. Now, overall, if your labs are in check, okay, your mood, stability, you're going to be chill, okay, confident all around. There's not really going to be any aggression or irritability taking the compound unless you react poorly on your labs, which I'll go into on the cons. But typically, if you're deploying this shit properly, you're going to be chill, okay? You'll have a little bit more confidence. Now, this is another pro take in this. It can actually reduce your E2 while on your blast. So E2 is your estradiol, aka your estrogen. Equipoise can reduce this down. So in some cases, you won't have to take an aromatase inhibitor, which if you've watched my past videos, AIs are toxic. All right. You definitely need these on hand, but you don't want to deploy them willy-nilly. All right. There's a specific use case for these to bring your E2 into range, but you don't want to be popping this shit like candy. So whatever compound you can take to reduce the aromatase inhibitor dose you take is going to be beneficial to you, and EQ can reduce your E2 on blast. So in some cases, you won't actually need an aromatase inhibitor on your cycle if you're deploying this, if you react genetically in that way. However, that brings me into the cons. So starting out here is the time, all right? The time that it takes to kick in. This is absolutely a con. A lot of people hate this and is why they front load the compound. A lot of people are impatient hopping on this shit. Now, I'm going to tell you why front loading is not a good idea, okay? If you front load the compound, you take, let's say your dose is 400 to 600 milligrams of EQ a week. Let's say that in order to front load, you double the goddamn dose up front for the first couple of weeks, 800 to 1200 milligrams a week, okay? Whatever the dose is, right? This can cause massive anxiety or irritability, okay? If you're front loading the shit too high, that means that you're taking a crazy high fucking dose off the rip. This shit is going to kick in all at once pretty quick, and instead of having 400 milligrams of EQ in your system or 600, you have double the dose in your system. So whatever side that you may have run into prior, whether it be that blood thickness, the irritability, the anxiety, okay, it's going to hit a million times harder up front, which is why you'll see some people talk about EQ and you see them talking about it very poorly because they front loaded it, because now they're having fucking panic attacks, because they just have way too much of the compound in their system up front. All right. This is a very common side you'll see because a lot of people front load the compound. I would not suggest doing this. Be patient with it. Just let it ride out. Okay. Take a low dose first. You'll know when it's kicked in because you'll get that appetite spike. You'll see it on your labs. Just wait. Just be patient with it, okay? If you're patient, this is not going to be a con. If you front load it, it can most definitely be a con, okay? But either way, it's going to take a while to kick in, so that can be considered a con for the compound. Now, also your blood thickness. This will absolutely spike. I mean, this is one of the most common sides taking this shit. It's literally designed, it was designed for racehorses to boost RBC hematocrit and hemoglobin for the endurance benefit. The higher these go on your labs, the better the endurance effect, the better the cardio, but that can lead to elevated blood thickness, which is very dangerous. It can lead to blood clot risk. You don't want to have crazy high RBC hematocrit and hemoglobin. So always make sure that you're on top of this via your CBC, your complete blood count. When you get your labs, you definitely have to be on top of this taking EQ. I would recommend getting this done about 3 separate times on top of your 3 set of labs you do pre, mid, and post blast. I would get this done periodically throughout the cycle, just so that you're on top of your blood thickness, okay? Me personally, I am very sensitive to compounds that fuck with my blood thickness, okay? I could take a high dose test and my RBC hematocrit and hemoglobin is elevated. All right, a lot of my clients are the same way. I've seen a lot of people in the industry the same exact way. Some people can take a high dose EQ, high dose test, and their blood thickness won't get affected at all. It's very genetically dependent. Everyone reacts differently. You're not going to know unless you get your own goddamn labs. So make sure you're on top of your CBC, even if you know for a fact that you do not react poorly to these types of compounds and your RBC hematocrit and hemoglobin is typically in range. You still have to be on top of it because for whatever reason it spikes randomly. You don't want to be at risk of a blood clot. All right, so make sure you're on top of this at all times. This is considered a con for the compound because of that elevated blood thickness risk. Now you can also run into mild acne and oily skin. Very common when you have a compound that is going to elevate these 3 variables I just mentioned, the RBC, hematocrit, hemoglobin. You want to stay on top of this if you're genetically reactive to this type of shit. If you already have oily skin, if you have fucking acne prior, just know that by taking this compound, you are going to increase the risk of running into this shit pretty fucking bad. When you see people online, okay, when they have horrific cases of face acne or back acne or whatever the fuck it may be, they typically were already running into this prior to taking gear, and then they hop on gear, they don't get their labs to take the shit haphazardly, they give gear a bad rep. All right, don't be one of these people. If you are already running into acne and oily skin, get to the root cause of why the fuck that's happening, fix it prior, and then hop on gear. Most likely will not run into these effects. Even if you do fix it, you put the band-aid over the solution, you can definitely still run into this. So that is considered a con taking the compound. Now, another major con is full shutdown. This compound's suppressive as fuck. So if you don't have a test space, your tests will tank and you're gonna feel like shit. Always have a test space. It's non-negotiable taking this compound. Yes, with VAR, okay, with Anavar, you can get away with taking a fucking VAR only blast and be fine for a cycle. Not with this, okay? You absolutely need a test space taking Equipoise, or else you are fucking yourself bad, okay? You will feel it. Your estrogen is gonna be fucked. Your test is gonna be fucked. You're gonna go get your labs. You're gonna be like, what did I do? Don't let that happen to you, brother, okay? Take a test space and make sure it's 1-to-1 with the EQ. That is the best, most general, vague rule of thumb I can give you if you're gonna take this compound, to make sure that all your levels are in range. Now, of course, for everybody, it's gonna be a little different. Some people might have to stack 1 to 2 to 1 test to EQ, or the opposite way around. It really just depends on how your body's gonna react to these compounds. So get your labs and then dial in the dose specifically for yourself. But to give a safe general rule of thumb, just stack it 1-to-1, you're gonna be A-okay. Now, who is EQ best for, okay? Guys that are having a hard time bulking in general, okay? I was that motherfucker. Like, I started out a very skinny anorexic fucking kid, okay? It's always been difficult for me to eat. Some people can eat easily, so this compound would probably not be in your best interest to take unless you're trying to go for that IFBB Pro Olympia caliber fucking physique where you have to be freaky, you got to have a large amount of muscle mass. You're still going to have a difficult time eating. It's difficult for everybody, all right? But for people specifically that are having a difficult time eating and trying to get those calories down, the protein, all the fucking macros, okay, this compound is a gem to take because it will give you that stimulation. You will be able to eat a lot more as opposed to not taking it, okay? So that is the single most best benefit you'll have taking this shit, and that is why I love taking it during my bulks. This compound's also best for athletes. If you're trying to get that cardio, that endurance benefit, this is definitely going to be in your interest to take, but it is only best for people that have patience, that can wait, people that are patient with the shit, intermediate vets that have already gone through those trials and tribulations of an early blast, the test only cycle, the test FAR blast, the test MPP blast. All right, once you've gone past that fucking point, you understand how to be patient, how to read labs. This is an amazing compound to utilize. But if you take it too soon, okay, you're impatient, you front load the fucking compound, you will run into sides. Don't front load this shit. Do not be impatient. If you are patient, this compound's going to be amazing for you. So overall, this compound isn't your quick fucking 0 to hero compound like Tren, all right? It's gonna take a while. It's not a 4-week fucking miracle, but if you're patient, it's going to give you that appetite stimulation. It will give you that endurance increase, which is going to help you amazingly during your training sessions to push harder, okay? To eat more, to gain more size, okay? To recover quicker. This compound is amazing during that off-season phase when you're trying to pack that size, get that appetite stim. This is your fucking go-to compound, but it's not beginner friendly. So if you haven't gone through those beginning stages, don't even fucking think about taking this compound. But if you're a little more advanced, this compound definitely has amazing use cases. So I hope you guys like this video, like and subscribe. If you learned a thing or two about EQ, comment below the compound you want me to go over next. A lot of you guys are saying growth hormone in the last video. I believe Clen came up a couple of times. So let me know what you want me to film next. It's most likely going to be growth, depending on what you guys write in the comments. But I will see you guys in the next video. Let me know what you guys want me to react to next.